Those opening notes are unmistakable. A single voice piercing the silence, followed by that dramatic cascade down the keyboard. A musical lightning bolt that has electrified audiences for centuries. Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor is perhaps the most famous organ work ever written, instantly recognizable to millions who have never set foot inside a concert hall. Yet behind its iconic status lies one of classical music's most intriguing mysteries. We're not entirely sure who wrote it, when it was composed, or even what instrument it was originally intended for. The piece's early existence was little known until it was discovered in an undated manuscript produced by Johannes Rinck, a relatively obscure German organist and copyist. Rinck created his copy between 1740 and 1760, having produced his first copy of a Bach score in 1730 when he was just 12 years old. In the first century of its existence, the entire reception history of the Toccata and Fugue in D minor consists of being saved from oblivion by maybe not more than a single manuscript copy. Think about that. One of the most famous pieces of music in the world survived by the thinnest of threads. A single copy, made by a student of Bach's student. Had Rinck not bothered to transcribe it, or had his manuscript been lost to fire, flood, or simple neglect, this cultural touchstone might have vanished forever. The manuscript itself raises questions. As with most Bach organ works, no autograph manuscript of BWV 565 survives. We have no version in Bach's own hand, no marginal notes, no corrections that might definitively prove authorship. The title page lists Johann Sebastian Bach as composer, but Rinck was copying music years after Bach's death in 1750, relying on what his teacher had given him. For nearly a century after its creation, the Toccata and Fugue remained obscure, just another forgotten organ work gathering dust in archives. Then came Felix Mendelssohn. The piece was first published in 1833, during the early Bach revival period through the efforts of composer Felix Mendelssohn, who already had BWV 565 in his repertoire by 1830. Mendelssohn, himself a brilliant composer and conductor, had become obsessed with resurrecting Bach's music during an era when the Baroque master had fallen out of fashion. The first major public performance was by Mendelssohn on the 6th of August 1840 in Leipzig, at St. Thomas Church, the very church where Bach had worked as cantor. Mendelssohn's opinion of the piece was that it was at the same time learned and something for the common people, and the concert was very well received by critics, among them Robert Schumann. This is one of the great ironies of music history. Bach's most famous organ work only became famous because another composer championed it a century after it was written. Without Mendelssohn's advocacy, we might never have heard those thunderous opening notes. But the Toccata's journey from obscure organ piece to cultural icon required one more transformation, one that Bach himself could never have imagined. The piece's association with horror goes back to the days of silent movies at the beginning of the 20th century, where some horror films were accompanied by a chilling solo organ, and the first horror movie to have sound, The Terror, was a film about an organist who goes on a murder spree. Ruben Mamoulian's 1931 film Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde popularized the association of Baroque music and evilness. The landmark 1931 release of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde used Bach's toccata in the opening credits, setting a tone of suspense and suggesting the depths of evil that Dr. Jekyll would encounter in his experiments, as Jekyll was portrayed as an amateur organist who enjoyed playing Bach's music. BWV 565 was used as film music well before the sound film era, becoming a cliché to illustrate horror and villainy. Why did this particular piece become synonymous with dread? The music owes much of its spookiness to the drama it employs. It is set in a somber minor mode aligned with negative emotions, features a striking melodic contour with an unexpected opening note that creates uncertainty, then a quick descent down the D minor scale, combined with silent background and pregnant pauses between phrases. The first 30 seconds are sheer suspense. Then came Walt Disney. In 1937, Stokowski and Disney discussed making an animated film to introduce classical music to a younger audience, and Fantasia contributed significantly to the popularity of the Toccata and Fugue. The 1940 film opened with Leopold Stokowski's orchestral arrangement of the piece, accompanied by abstract animations that had nothing to do with haunted houses or monsters. Yet the association with the macabre had already been cemented. Just as the Toccata and Fugue reached peak popularity in the 20th century, scholars began asking an uncomfortable question. Did Bach actually write this? These doubts about the authorship of BWV 565 were elaborated by Peter Williams in a 1981 article, with hypotheses including that BWV 565 may have been composed after 1750 and may have been based on an earlier composition for another instrument, supposedly a violin. The problems are numerous. Williams identified stylistic problems, including parallel octaves throughout the opening of the toccata, and primitive harmonies throughout the piece. In 2006, a computer analysis of Bach's compositional style suggested that portions of the piece were inconsistent with his other works. Various alternative theories have emerged. A candidate composer presented is Cornelius Heinrich Drexel of Nuremberg, 1697 to 1775. With a stylistic comparison of his Divertimento Armonico to BWV 565, revealing a very high level of congruity. Williams's theory suggests that BWV 565 may have been a transcription of a lost solo violin piece, yet not everyone is convinced. Generally speaking, a minority of Bach scholars question the piece's attribution. The composition's journey went from being saved from oblivion by a single manuscript copy to taking about a century from its first publication as a little-known organ composition to becoming one of Bach's signature pieces, to its third century, taking it from Bach's most often recorded organ piece to a composition with an unclear origin. What makes this story so fascinating is that both sides may be right in different ways. Perhaps it was written by a young Bach, still finding his voice, which would explain the unusual stylistic choices. Perhaps it was originally for violin and later transcribed. Perhaps it was by a student or colleague whose name has been lost to time. As of today, no one has definitively proven it wasn't Bach. And in the end, does it matter? Organist and Bach scholar Hans Fagius commented in 2005 that while the authorship issue may remain unresolved, the enduring popularity of the work is not difficult to understand, since there is a fantastic drive and energy to the piece that simply makes it irresistible. The Toccata and Fugue in D minor has lived 3 lives. First as an obscure manuscript that nearly vanished, then as a concert showpiece championed by Mendelssohn, and finally as a cultural icon forever associated with darkness, drama, and the supernatural. It has been played on everything from pipe organs to wine glasses, from orchestras to electric guitars. It has opened horror films and children's cartoons. It has been parodied, sampled, and reimagined countless times. And perhaps that's the real truth behind this mysterious masterpiece. It doesn't belong to Bach, or Drexel, or any single composer. It belongs to all of us now. A piece of music so powerful and iconic that its origins have become secondary to its impact. Those opening notes will continue to send shivers down spines for centuries to come. regardless of whose hand first put them to paper. The phantom organist, whoever he was, created something immortal.